While there are no shortage of television dramas about organized crime, Tulsa King showrunner Terrence Winter has been quick to point out how Dwight differs from the small screen's most famous mobster Tony Soprano, the late James Gandolfini. For 35 days, Season 2 has now averaged more than 10 million global households on the streamer, according to Paramount Global. It is outpacing Season 1, which had reached about 9.5 million households by this time, by 8%. That indicates that interest in Tulsa King has continued to grow over the last 5 weeks since Season 2 debuted. In the 7 days post-premiere, the first episode of Season 2 managed 5.4 million active sub-households. The episode also broke a record for the series in terms of premiere day viewership. Life Support, the 7th episode of Tulsa King, Season 2 crime drama on Paramount Plus, centers on Dwight, the General Manfredi's search for the person who planted the bomb in his Navigator. He contacts all 3 of his adversaries as a result of the investigation. The truth about the bombing is finally exposed despite their denials of any role in the disaster. Tyson Mitchell is determined to get revenge on the person he believes was responsible for the murder attempt as his employer works to solve the mystery surrounding the explosion. His acts don't solve problems. They make them worse. A doctor informs Tyson Mitchell and his family that Mark Mitchell has survived the explosion at the start of Life Support. The situation is reduced to a near-death encounter because the plumber did not enter the wrecked car at all. Tyson's mother requests that him leave the hospital when Dwight Manfredi visits the family. The driver of the former mafia capo is adamant about getting revenge on Bill Bevilacqua because he thinks the Kansas City mobster is responsible for the assault. The general tries to calm his right-hand man down and avoids making snap judgments. He tries to identify the person responsible for the explosion despite the fact that he is unable to revive Tyson. The mafia leader from New York City claims that if he wants the former capo dead, he will put 2 bullets in his skull. He then contacts Bevilacqua, who follows Chicky and explains that he is not involved in the attempted murder. Although his predecessor had a history of blasting autos, it seems that he has moved past the practice. Nevertheless, Chicky frightens him by claiming that Dwight has his sights set on the mobster. When they first meet, the general questions Armin Manny Truzzi about Cal Thresher. Although Manny claims to have no relationship to the businessman, his actions reveal his deceit. Dwight visits Thresher in person. By admitting that he recognized the white automobile that was pursuing Tyson prior to the explosion, he frightens his opponent. The billionaire confronts his partner, Jackie Ming, after denying owning such a car. Thresher learns that the Chinese triad member is responsible for the explosion. He murders his associate, Hanjin, and destroys the vehicle that was used to follow Tyson in order to permanently hide his role in the matter. Since Dwight has already located the firm that registered the vehicle through his former driving instructor, Paul, the precautionary action proves to be too late. Following Vince Antonacci's attendance at the Atlanta sit-down without the mafia boss Chicky, their friendship deteriorates. His employer is upset with him since he is unable to obtain anything of value for New York. Since Chicky implied that he killed his father, Pete, the Rock Invernizzi, Vince has been terrified of him. His hothead personality makes his underboss worried, and after he forms an alliance with Dwight Manfredi, he talks to the mafia leader's associates about killing him. Because they adore the general, the elders at the NOIC crime site support the proposal. We might witness Vince calling Dwight to murder Chicky in the next episodes. He might not, however, get the reaction he hopes for from the former mafia capo. Other than potentially fatal outcomes, the arrangement offers the general nothing. He doesn't need to interfere with the leaders of New York because he has established his own empire in Tulsa. The New York City Mafia's operations don't appear to be profitable enough to justify the plan's level of danger. Furthermore, Dwight might not be able to stab Chicky in the back due to his morals. The current leader of the Invernizzi family would have passed away by now if he had desired it. Dwight is attempting to establish a solid bond with his daughter Tina, as well as Margaret Devereux. He explains in the episode that he is unable to restrain his inclinations to meet the Fenario Ranch's owner. His re-established relationship with his daughter and his unity with his partner could be jeopardized by his possible involvement in an assassination plan. As a result, even though Vince might make promises to entice him to join the plot, he is expected to reject them. Tyson loses faith in his employer when Dwight does not take prompt action following the Navigator blast. After seeing his father, he decides to take matters into his own hands and travels to Kansas City to murder Bill Bevilacqua. Mark phones Dwight to stop his son, but Tyson probably murders one of the gangster's colleagues in Kansas City and leaves the scene before the general can step in. Because Bevilacqua now has an excuse to strike back at the new king of Tulsa, his actions put Dwight in a precarious situation. In the 6th episode of the 2nd season, the gangster contemplates harming the general, but he decides against it after realizing that the general is a cash cow. But after what Tyson accomplishes, Bevilacqua might not put up with Dwight encroaching on his domain. The general cannot even object to the gangster's reprisal because it is now justified. The possibility of Vince and Bevilacqua forming a partnership exists if the former mafia capo rejects Vince. In order to take control of their respective regions, New York and Tulsa, the two might band together to attempt to murder Chicky and Dwight. The general might have to use more money to sue his Kansas City counterpart down in order to prevent such a problem.